If your clematis is climbing beautifully and handing you nothing but leaves, the plant is almost never the problem. There are 5 reasons it refuses to flower, and every single one of them is fixable. Before I get into it, if you want a garden that actually rewards the work, subscribe and stay with me. It genuinely helps. You know the frustration. The vine goes up like a champion. It covers the trellis, wraps the arch, throws out lush green leaf after lush green leaf, and come summer, there is not one bloom to show for it. A wall of foliage and nothing else. And here is the first thing I want you to hear, because it changes everything. A healthy, leafy vine is not a failing plant. It is a willing one. That green tells you the roots are working, and the plant has energy to spare. It just isn't spending that energy on flowers, and that is on us, not on the clematis. If your clematis is all vine and no flower, one of these 5 is your answer. And the first one is the one most people get wrong every single winter. So let's start with the mistake that costs the most flowers: pruning at the wrong time. Here is the part nobody tells you. Clematis are not one plant with one set of rules. They fall into 3 pruning groups, and those groups are not interchangeable. Prune one the way you'd prune another, and you cut your whole summer off with your own hands. Group 1 is the spring bloomers. The big vigorous Montana is the one you'll know. These flower on last year's wood, the growth they made the season before. So if you go out in late winter and cut them back to tidy them up, you are not pruning. You are slicing off every flower bud they had ready and waiting. Leave them alone, and they bloom. Cut them, and they sulk. Group 2 is the big early summer hybrids, the ones with the huge showy flowers, Nellie Moser with those soft pink bars, the President in deep velvet purple. These flower on old wood too, so a hard chop in spring wipes out the entire show before it starts. A light tidy only, and only after they've flowered. Group 3 is the late summer crowd. Jackmani, the Viticella types. And this is the only group, the only one that actually wants cutting hard, right down to about a foot off the ground in February. They flower on this year's new growth, so that hard cut is exactly what fuels the display. Do that same cut to a group 1 or a group 2, and you've just thrown the whole year away. So how do you tell which one you've got without a label? Simple. So before you touch it with the secateurs, ask one question. Does it bloom before June or after? If it blooms before June, prune it right after it flowers, never in spring. That one rule keeps you from cutting off the very buds you're waiting on. Get the group wrong, cut at the wrong time, and the plant does the only thing it can. It grows back vines instead of flowers. Know your pruning group, and you've already fixed the single most common reason a clematis withholds its blooms. But here's the catch. You can prune it perfectly, exactly to its group, and it can still stand there leafing away and refusing to give you a single flower, because it's missing the one thing that funds every bloom. And it's the quiet reason almost nobody suspects. So look for the light. A clematis wants at least 6 hours of sun on its head to set a single bud, and if it is not getting that, everything else you do barely matters. Give it a shady corner, and it will happily oblige you. It will climb. It will throw out green. It will cover a fence in the healthiest-looking leaves you ever saw, and it will hand you not one flower. Here is why. Flowering is expensive. A bloom costs the plant real energy to build, and a clematis short of sunlight simply does not have that energy to spend, so it does the sensible thing and spends nothing. It stays a vine. If yours is trained against a north wall, or tucked behind something taller that steals its afternoon, You may have just found your whole answer right there. Not the soil, not the feed, the light. You know the one. Your neighbor's clematis 2 gardens over, dripping with flower against a bright sunny wall, and yours a wall of green. Same plant, near enough. Different light. So the fix is honest and a little bit of work. Either move it to a brighter spot while it is dormant, or open up the light around it. Thin back the branch, the shrub, the overgrown neighbor that is casting shade over its top. Get the sun onto its head, and it does not have to come all at once. A good morning's worth, or a full blazing afternoon, either will do the job. But hold on to this, because it matters later. The top wants the sun, while the bottom wants the exact opposite. Head in the light, roots in the cool. Keep that split in mind. Now reason 3, and this is the one that stings a little, because it is where a lot of us sabotage ourselves with pure kindness. You want to help the plant, so you feed it, and you reach for whatever is in the shed, often a general lawn or leaf feed, the stuff loaded with nitrogen. If you have been feeding it a general lawn feed to be kind, that is very likely why it is all leaf. You have been paying for greenery, not blooms, because that is exactly what nitrogen does. It pushes lush green growth, hard and fast, at the direct expense of buds. So the vine that was already handing you leaves but not a single flower, you have just told it to make more leaves. You doubled down on the problem without knowing it. Here is the rule to carry out of this, and it is the whole thing in 6 words. Nitrogen builds leaves. Potassium pays for flowers. Say it to yourself next time you stand in front of the feed shelf. Nitrogen for green, potassium for blooms. So swap it. Put the lawn feed down. What you want instead is a tomato feed, or a handful of sulfate of potash worked into the soil in early spring, right around the base and watered in. That is it. That single change flips the plant from growing to blooming, from spending everything on green to finally paying out flowers. You will not need much either. Clematis are not greedy feeders. That one spring handful, or a tomato feed every couple of weeks through the growing season, and you have handed it everything it needs to turn green into bloom. Quick question while we are here. Tell me in the comments which climber you are fighting with this year. And if this is making sense, a subscribe means a lot. Right. So we have covered the pruning group, the light, and the feed. 3 reasons, 3 real fixes, and that leaves the 2 reasons clematis are truly famous for. The first is a demand hidden entirely underground. Their roots want to be cool and shaded, while their tops bask in the sun. And the second, the 5th reason, is the one most gardeners get completely backwards. The mistake that quietly costs a whole summer of blooms. Cool and shaded down below, while the top basks in full sun. That is the split personality of a clematis, and it is the 4th reason yours might be handing you nothing but leaves. A vine with hot, dry roots is a stressed vine, and a stressed vine will not flower no matter how well you pruned it or what you fed it. Because down at the crown, where the soil bakes against a wall or an open border, the plant is spending everything it has just to survive. And a plant fighting to survive does not set buds. Flowering is a luxury. It only happens once the roots are comfortable. So make them comfortable. Shade the base with a low plant, a flat stone, or a good mulch. A leafy perennial planted right in front of the crown does it beautifully, or a broad flat stone laid over the root zone, or a couple of inches of bark mulch spread wide around the base. Any of the 3 keeps the soil down there cool and damp through the hottest weeks, then water it deeply through summer. Not a daily splash, but a proper soak once or twice a week that reaches right down to the roots. Give the roots that cool, damp start, and the top rewards you. It is the oldest piece of Clematis wisdom there is, and it is old because it is true. That brings us to the fifth reason, and it is the one most gardeners get completely backwards. A young Clematis that gives you only leaves is not failing. It is doing exactly what a young Clematis is supposed to do. Here is how it goes, and every Clematis grower learns it eventually. First year they sleep, second year they creep, third year they leap. In its first season, a newly planted Clematis puts almost nothing above ground. In its second, it starts to stretch, a bit more vine, maybe a flower or two if you are lucky. And in its third year, it finally lets go and covers the wall. All that time, while you are staring at bare growth and wondering what you did wrong, the plant is busy underground, building a root system strong enough to carry a whole summer of flowers. It spends the energy on roots first. Blooms come once the foundation is laid. And this is where the kindness backfires. A leafy young vine looks like it needs help, so people feed it harder. And remember what that does. Nitrogen builds leaves, potassium pays for flowers, and a hungry feed only buries a young plant in more green. There is no feed on earth that hurries the third year along. None. If you have a Clematis you planted only a year or two ago, do not touch that feed. This one is almost certainly you. What it wants instead is patience, and one thing done right at planting. Plant deep, with the crown a couple of inches under the soil. That buried crown is your insurance. It lets the plant build a strong, protected base underground, and if the top ever gets damaged or cut back, it can shoot again from below. Deep planting and time. That is the whole of it. So there they are, all 5, and every one of them is fixable. Know your pruning group, and never cut a spring or early summer bloomer in late winter. Give it at least 6 hours of sun so it can afford to flower. Feed it potassium, not nitrogen, a tomato feed or a handful of sulfate of potash in early spring. Keep its roots cool and shaded while its head bakes in the light. And if it is young, leave it alone and let it grow up. That is the real fix, and there is a real reason behind every part of it. The vine that hands you leaves and not a single flower is not a lost cause. It never was. It is a healthy plant waiting on one thing you had not given it yet, and now you know which. Match the reason to your own vine, put it right this season, and let it prove you correct next summer. Give it the handful of things it has been quietly asking for. And next summer, that vine hands you more flowers than you know what to do with.